Good afternoon, and welcome to City Speaks. I'm Vicki Westling, here with our guest, 3rd Ward Councilman Shaun Heenan, 1st Ward Councilman Don Williams. City Speaks is a show that's put together to provide transparency for our citizens, our residents, for the city of Dunkirk. This show is your show. It is for you. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns, please don't hesitate to send those to me. You can email them to vwestling@cityofdunkirk.com. Mail them, City Hall, 342 Central Avenue, Dunkirk 14048. Drop them off at the city clerk's office or call me directly at 363-6888, and we'll be happy to talk about your questions, your concerns, and hopefully solve some of them. Today, we're going to go right into what's happening because we have a long time awaited council person here with us, someone who's had many questions asked and asked of. So, Councilman Heenan, welcome aboard. We're glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
And you are a 3rd Ward Councilman.
Correct.
And of course, I'm just going to come right out with it. As you and I have discussed, we've had conversations about this, so we want to just get it out of the way. You are a full-time, regular resident for the city of Dunkirk.
I am.
And you've lived on Seal Acres for how long?
Since 1999.
And you and your wife live there and reside there and are very happy there.
Yes, that's correct.
Right, and you're going to hang around.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, well that's good to know. So that one's out of the way. And Councilman Williams, you're our 1st Ward Councilman.
Correct.
Right, and we know you live in the city. You've lived here forever, right?
Just about.
Just about. And Councilman Williams, you are our chairperson for the DPW committee.
Correct.
And Councilman Heenan, you're the chairperson for our Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
And those two committees, you guys really have to work hand in hand because you really deal with all the different things that are happening in the city, whether we're working on infrastructure or some of the big things that are going on, right?
Correct.
So one of the things that I want to talk about, because I'm really excited about our comprehensive plan. The city of Dunkirk has embarked finally on updating our comprehensive plan, which hasn't been updated for, I don't know, if I were to say 50 years, that might be wrong, but it's close. So we have had our first meeting on the comprehensive plan, and as the chairperson for the Economic Development Committee, tell me, how did that go?
I understand that it went very well. They had over 100 people come to I believe it was at the church on Central Avenue, and the other one was at the Kosciuszko Club, I believe.
I believe
and
so.
I can't remember if the total was 100 people throughout the whole day or just at the one area. But nonetheless, it's a very good turnout of the residents.
Right, and they filled out surveys.
Sharing their ideas, yes.
Yeah, and then we had the meeting, and the meeting was made up, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong. We had staff members from our Planning and Development Department.
Yes.
We have our local community business leaders. Yeah, and now did you chair that meeting?
I did not. I stopped in shortly. But it was busy. I mean, it was very busy, actually, that first one. They were lined up and they had a good showing.
Oh, good. And so now our comprehensive plan is really going to deal with a lot of different issues. I know it's not going to be finalized for a while, but it's going to also deal with our infrastructure issues, which is something that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes, it is.
So tell me a little bit about how you think those things might fit together.
I think that what we're trying to do is bring businesses and families to the city of Dunkirk. I think economic development and the DPW go hand in hand, where the infrastructure with our roads, our drainage, our sewer, our water lines, if we have all that in the right shape, then we have a nice package to offer to some businesses and families to come and locate here.
Right, and of course with the comprehensive plan that does talk about businesses, and one of them is that we have just received our BOA designation, which is the Brownfield Opportunities Area, which means that businesses coming in, we have some BOA sites. We had the one on Lucas Avenue, and the one now that's happening is over on Roberts Road, the old Edgewood warehouse, where our cold storage warehouse is going in. So because that has been a brownfield, that means that the state now will help fund part of that cleanup. And so this BOA designation is really going to be a boon to the city because we're going to be able to have the state funds. Tell me a little bit about that.
Vicki, you could probably tell me more about that than I know at this time. I just know that is one of the sites there, and that is what we're doing with the Edgewood.
Okay,
so, to be honest with you, I don't know enough about the other sites or am aware of them at this time.
Okay, and I think the Edgewood warehouse is just about down now.
Yeah, I drove by it the other day. It's pretty well cleaned up.
Looks like it's down. It looks like they got to clean some of it, clean the piles of brick and everything up there. But they did that pretty fast.
That is going to be amazing when that cold storage warehouse comes in. Some of the other things we have going are, our zombie properties. We've received funding to help us to identify where the zombie properties are, and our development department has been working with that. Now, how will that affect the public works area? I mean, because with the zombie properties, what we're going to be do some tear down, some renovation?
I don't know exactly how that's supposed to work. I know that the state law with the zombie property it lets us get in touch with the owners of it, where now that we can reach them, it's easier for them to say we don't want to be bothered, so we're going to sign it over, and then it could be torn down and stuff like that. But before the new laws were passed, it was really tough to get in touch with and hold any of the owners of the properties to keeping their properties up to code. And I know right now there's one on Courtney and Nevins that has been a problem for way before I was in office, and I'm hoping that we can get some work done on that, because the neighbors there have been calling. Even though that's not my ward, I've talked to them several times, and there's some problems there.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of being a city councilman. They call you regardless, right? That doesn't matter.
Always welcome. Always welcome.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely welcome.
Right. The other thing now with with some of the projects that are going on, I have a few of these, so let's just talk about them quickly, because we had the Wright Park project, and now we've applied for, I think we're looking for more funds through a CFA grant for that, to receive additional funds on that. Maybe you can help us with that a little bit through the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, that I'm not even aware of that,
Okay.
what the
Well,
funding
and
is
of
for
course
that part, other than
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot
some
going
of the
on.
Wright Park projects. That,
Have you been to the splash pad?
I have. I drove by it, yes. But,
you didn't go through it?
I did not go through it, no.
Oh, you got to go through it. It's wonderful to
I
run
was there
through
for the
there.
ribbon cutting. That was
You
a
were.
good time, and Councilman Civiletto and I hung around a little bit after the ribbon cutting, and we were looking and trying to see what could that be. There's a lot of open space there still, so yeah, if there's more money that we can get to try to do things. I know that there's some residents that would like to see the road kind of go through there instead of having to drive up and over through the Little League section. So maybe if we could extend a piece of road from Serval Street to even that parking lot area for the skate park and stuff, and get stuff to go there, that might leave the rest of it able to be developed for something else, for some type of recreational activities.
Huh, that's a thought. I hadn't thought of that. Now, you also sit on the Personnel Committee, which also deals with the recreation issues, and I know one of the things that you've been talking about is pond hockey.
Yes.
At our last meeting, we talked about possibly having some kind of winter activity going on there.
Correct. Yeah, since I got on council, I've been bringing up pond hockey whenever I could, and trying to get that. There's a lot of gentlemen from the area that do a lot of traveling to go play pond hockey, and they have a blast with it. And several of them have come up to me and said, hey, you know what? This would be something good to have in Dunkirk. And so I've been trying to mention it at the meetings, and it sounds like it's getting a lot closer now.
Well, of course, if we had more winter activities here, because now everything is the summer and our lakefront development, all the things that are happening along the lake, once the summer season is over, it kind of goes away. So that would be great to bring something in for the winter time, for the winter visitors.
Yeah, that would be really great, because you're right. Right now we have June to September,
Right.
and we need to try to get a little bit more foot traffic in the city of Dunkirk in some of the other months too. And I think one of the good things that we could try to do is try to come up with something to draw people here in the wintertime also. I know that there were talks in some different committees about maybe like trying to do some type of Festival of Lights type of activity at the point or something, and just anything. And if anybody's got ideas out there, you can get those to Vicki too, and we can look at everything. I mean, there's nothing that I won't look at to try to bring people here for winter activities also.
Right. The whole thing is that with the city of Dunkirk, with what's happening, with our economic development, with the things that are going on, our smart growth funds, the Central Avenue connection, the pier redevelopment, all the things that are happening. We really do need to do everything we can to bring people in. And I know in the summertime we do bring a lot of people in. We just had this phenomenal boat race.
I think we have a lot of opportunity out there that's low cost to the city. Some of it is, I know ice fishing was mentioned. Fishing itself was mentioned as we used to do some of the tournaments. I'm not sure how many tournaments we have now a year, but I know they've always been very popular. I think the first week of June is the walleye one, if I'm correct. I don't recall. That's the biggest one. But I mean, if Duncan wants to be known for something, I think it would be fishing. I think it would be keeping our beaches in pristine condition. I think that is low cost to the taxpayer. It's also a quality of life issue for the residents. It's enjoy fishing. Their beaches are nice and cleaned up, and so it not only benefits the residents, it also benefits people from outside the area to come here. And again, I like that because there's not a lot of costs involved.
Yeah. Well, of course, you have to spend something to make something sometimes. So we kind of have to look at it that way too.
Well, I look at the long term, and I enjoy having events. I think they're great, but it's a weekend, and I think it's more important to have events that are many different weekends throughout the year, which would be fishing, and beaches that are in pristine condition from June until Labor Day. Mm-hmm. And
right.
Those are my personal thoughts.
Right.
When we get into some of the overtime with some of these events, it gets pretty high, but this is stuff that can be done on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Well, and of course, if as our city develops, and certainly we're looking at the potential of another hotel in, ways to bring tourists in and residents, year-round. If we do something in the wintertime to make it a winter place, we also have the concept now of the little city by the lake. I think that's coming on through our.
Yeah, that was yesterday's meeting. The branding that they've been working on the Block Club. They did a very, very excellent job. It's some really nice,
right.
really nice.
So we really need to bring that up. And I know Revitalize Dunkirk talked last night at the council meeting about, they're going to think about expanding, watching the sunsets in the wintertime. So maybe instead of bring your own chair, it'll be bring your own blanket.
Well, and the nice thing with that branding also, as you know, it also ties us in with the whole central connections. And the college and the Village of Fredonia. So it's really they laid that out very nicely.
Right. So, we have to give kudos to our development director.
No, absolutely. She's fantastic.
Right. She
fantastic.
really is. So we have a lot of things going on, and we talk about the quality of life. We talk about, our safety issues with our police department. We have the best guys in blue ever. We have a fire department that is just top of the line. I absolutely cannot say enough about our fire department, our fire chief, and I mean, I just think that they're really super. So we have our safety issue. We have our schools, Dunkirk school system, and I noticed that just we're one of the few schools in the whole Western New York now that still has one school. The football players all go to the same school.
Yeah.
So that's significant. So we have our schools. We have the only Catholic school within how many miles? Councilman Williams?
It's the only one in Chautauqua County, so
yeah.
I don't really know.
So we really have the safety, we have the schools, and now we're working on our infrastructure and quality of life. Quality of life deals with our social issues. It deals with things that are happening within our city to bring people in and to keep them involved. So the pond hockey sounds great.
Yep.
And you talk about the festivals. These festivals are phenomenal. People do come in for those, and they love them. And I think those are the kinds of things we need to do. But I don't fish.
I don't fish either. I just don't have the time or the patience to do it. But I'm happy for the people that do.
For those do. But I think that's right. The walleye tournament is big, and I think the people need to do that.
And I also want to not leave the guys out from the DPW in that whole we got the best of everything, because what people don't see is the guys that we have working at the water filtration, the wastewater filtration plant that give us the good water to drink, that treat the wastewater so that it can legally go into the lake and wherever it's released or whatever there. And then we have our water maintenance guys that are fixing all that, all the water main breaks that we have and anything that's going on there. We have the parks guys that keep all of the parks in the city excellent looking, and then we have the streets guys that keep the potholes patched so that we don't have the bumpy roads, and they keep the roads clear of snow in the wintertime. And so there's a lot of
Well, certainly.
not really seen, but they're seen but not seen, but they do a lot of work that really does improve the quality of the life of the city.
And Don, and I think you're 100% correct with that. And when you say quality of life, it's fantastic, and it's great that we have a Phoenix coming to this area. But when people want to move to the area, those are some of the top things they look at. They look at our schools, they look at our infrastructure, they look at the police department, they look at the fire department. It's all of those quality of life issues that they look at. That could be the difference of them wanting to move to Dunkirk, New York, or moving 30 miles down the road to somewhere else that they feel safe and secure at. That's again, those are my personal thoughts. And it's certainly an issue, and it's an issue that we need to take care of.
Right, and we need to bring them in. And you mentioned the wastewater treatment plant and our water filtration plant. City Speaks was there at both of those plants, and we really went through with our chief operators at both plants. They both want us to come back because they're working on huge projects there that are going on. So we're going to do that. We've had our street supervisor, Mike Propiglia, on City Speaks, and he was terrific. And he and I, we're going to actually do a ride-through with all of the different projects and things that he has going on. So City Speaks is really going out in the field. We really do want to highlight our employees and our workers, and I do believe that our DPW department is great. I mean, every single one of them. Like you said, you see the guys down in the holes digging to repair the water main breaks, and you don't really think too much about that, but these are the guys that are really working, and they're working in the the worst of the weather conditions. So our streets get plowed on time, and I know there are people who say, well, mine hasn't gotten plowed yet. Just be patient, it will. So these things are happening. So we do have great DPW department, and I cannot
and there's always issues in the city, and aesthetically as well, that as residents we just get accustomed to seeing it. The Colburn block is one of them, and there we have the whole side of a building missing, and one block away we've got a beautiful Lake Erie and a beautiful pier, and those are some of the issues we need to address. Everything to that side of Route 5. To us, we see it day to day again, and we get accustomed to it. Somebody from out of town looks one way and they look the other way, and that's sometimes the last impression they have.
And that comes in with...
And you want that to be the first impression, to see the lake and then look around and be able to see that we're a nice, clean, city.
What is the old saying? There's you never get a second chance to make a good first impression.
Well, there you go. That's exactly it, and I think that's some of the things we need to concentrate on, getting people to this area.
Right, our private development is critical. And you mentioned Phoenix. Now, although Phoenix is in the town, the city is really going to reap some benefits from having them where they are. They will use our wastewater treatment plant, our water filtration plant, which brings us to the North County Water District.
Oh yeah.
So that's phenomenal. How much involved have you been in that?
We've talked about it at a lot of our DPW committee meetings. We've talked about it at the finance committee meetings on what's going to happen once there's that master meter at each end of town. So I'm very excited about it.
And we talk about that, and we have time, and it flies so fast. I believe that the first project to roll off the shelves is scheduled at Phoenix, I think, in about 18 months. But now's the time that we really need to, put on the push, and we need to try to get people to the city and into some of the neighborhoods and remodel, renovate some of the older homes that are up and down Washington Avenue, Park Avenue, all those 500, 600, 700 block homes. I mean, they're just gorgeous homes, just waiting for a nice end to go in there and just do them over just like the old days. And that's really, I think, where most of our housing stock is. We really don't have a lot in the city for somebody to build new homes. It's very limited.
Well, yeah, Battery Point Villas is coming in. So that's a happening thing. That's really moving along. And I know that our development department has really been involved in that. Have you been out to look at the site?
I've been out there, and hopefully, I know they started cleaning some of it up in the last month here.
Yeah.
I actually drove up and down some of the streets there. But as far as other home ownership for somebody who actually wants to build their own, home, and that's where I think we're lacking. But there's not anything we can really do to that. All we can really do is promote the housing that we have and hope that somebody wants to come in there and regentrify some of the neighborhoods there.
Because we're really kind of landlocked.
We are kind of landlocked, unfortunately. I mean, there are, of course, other benefits besides that, but you need to keep the taxes where they're at. And one thing that we haven't discussed here, maybe you've discussed in previous City Speak shows, is it seems it's come to a slowdown with the Brooks Hospital. And that's a concern that
Yeah.
was really on all of us quite a bit, and it seems to be kind of quieted down a little bit. I think for reasons beyond the city. I think some of it is just because the town of Pomfret and some of the things that they're trying to do.
having some zoning
the zoning
issues.
issues up there with
Yeah.
them. But that's a big part that we need to readdress again. And I could be wrong. I've been approached when I got in office to be a member of, I believe it's 20 plus people to kind of get together and come up with some ideas and thoughts and issues. But those are some of the concerns that we need to look at for our downtown.
Absolutely, and private development is important. We've got the STEL project that's going on, and that's really going to improve one of the ingresses to the city, ingresses to the city to come in, right? So those are important. So we have the STEL projects, we have the Battery Point Villas, we have the cold storage warehouse, we've got the marina development that's happening. That's a big thing, and of course we have the hotel that we're all still waiting for. Tell me about it.
Well, I know that at one of the meetings, the gentleman came down and they discussed some of the pier improvements, and we did have input from the residents. I don't know where that stands now. I know they were going somewhat back to the drawing board and coming up with some new ideas with what they had heard from that day. But at this point, I
haven't heard any other
I-
updates from that.
Right, from the pier. I think that once that happens, though, it's going to be great.
Oh,
really
I think
will.
it's a great idea. I mean, I mentioned at one meeting, if you could drive down to the city of Erie, and you get to the end of State Street, and although the city is much bigger than ours, the pier area, and that really isn't a whole lot other than the one block of State Street that leads up to the pier. And they really did some beautiful things. And they were actually able to keep quite a bit of their parking. I was just down there recently, and I know that was a concern that some of the people at this last meeting, I think there's 50 plus places out there. Many times during the summer I drove out there, and there's 25, 30 cars out there at 10:30 in the morning, So, I mean,
Well,
that's going to be a concern of ours, parking issue. Well, not just for the pier, but anything down along that lakefront. So.
And with NRG not running like they used to, or not running at all, but
Right.
back when they were doing the cold, that whole inlet used to stay, that would never freeze
Ice-free,
over.
right.
Yeah. And now with the ice forming over the lake over there, I would go down to the lake a lot last winter, and I'd get nervous because I wouldn't have been brave enough to be walking on that ice. But there were days that there were at least 20 ice fishermen sitting out in that one little area, and they were catching fish.
It was really neat to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we really have to work hard to promote our area because Dunkirk really is a fabulous place to live. We have the lakefront, we have all the other issues that come into play, and everybody needs to take a responsibility to make it better. And you all as councilmen, you're in the catbird seat.
Well, we need to give people a reason to want to move here, and that's what we need to do.
Right, and I think economic development's the way to go.
Economic development is the way to go. That's
Absolutely.
it, of course.
And infrastructure.
And infrastructure.
So-
Infrastructure is definitely needed.
And now you also work for the county.
Yes.
And so we kind of do some things hand in hand, right?
Yes. I work for the county highway department, and there's been several times that through shared services I've had to come and work with the city crews on different jobs, and they come out and help us on stuff because there's sometimes where like the driveway pipes are plugged or something, and they'll have their big vac truck come out and clean those out while we're working. So we work hand in hand with each other, and it works out pretty well.
And that's one of the things that that we really try to do as a city, but also that the governor has, they really like the shared services idea. So we really need to do that as much as we can. And I know that the mayor's administration is looking for opportunities to share services with other municipalities. And that's a part of the North County Water District. How can we bring things together? It's easier sometimes when we're stronger when there's more than just one of us, when we have a team or we have a group. So
There's going to come a time if the population keeps declining like it is in the area, there's going to come a time where there's going to be schools that are rivals
Yeah.
that may have to get together. There's going to be cities, villages, towns, whatever, that probably at some point are going to have to try to get together and do things. And if you don't merge as one or whatever, at least try to share as many of the services as you can with that. other municipality or municipalities. And I said a while back that, geez, wouldn't it be the easiest thing if the town of Dunkirk and the city of Dunkirk were able to get together and become one Dunkirk? And that I don't think that's going to happen, but I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind seeing us try to work with them. I wouldn't mind try to work with anybody to try to get things all together. And there are a lot of layers of government.
Right. Well, sometimes those lines, those demarcation lines that separate villages from cities or towns from cities, actually become walls.
Right.
And I think that that's what's happened, and we just have to continue to work together. And that's one of the things that we've done with our smart growth funds, with the central connection, in bringing all the way down from the village of Fredonia through SUNY into Dunkirk and into the pier. I mean, that's what we have to do. And we have to continue to chip away at that. You know, we eat an elephant a bite at a time.
One of the ideal situations, and I've spoken to people at the county level before, now with the central connections, I thought, depending on which way the village of Fredonia and the city of Dunkirk want to do, but I had mentioned at one time that I thought it would be a good idea, possibly, that Millard Fillmore becomes kind of the main gate that brings us right to Central Avenue. I know for years people would get out that throughway and they'd shoot right down Maple Avenue 60 and then on to Main Street. But I could just imagine that being dressed up and as attractive looking as Central Avenue would be, and if that could carry on from that with the bike path and everything else and the sidewalks all the way up to the Route 60, I really think that would be a great way to complete that. I don't know if that's in the plans at all for the future, but I think that would just be a natural thing to do if both city and village thought that was a gateway to come in, you know, along with the college.
Right. Well, I think that you're in the perfect position to bring that up and push that forward and make it happen.
Well, I brought that up when Mr. Spanos was still working. That was about a year or two ago, and it was just a discussion. But it really wouldn't take much. It's pretty much lighting, you know, some site work, some aesthetic type of stuff, and it could really be nice. I mean, they've
kind of dress up the entrance.
It really would, and that would be a first impression for people coming off of the thruway. I mean, there's I forgot how many. There's 2 or 3 million cars a year that I believe go off and on that thruway. That's a lot of traffic.
Well, I think that anything that we can do to help promote the city of Dunkirk, not only as just a place to live, but a place to recreate, a place to go to, a place to enjoy everything that happens around us. Those are the things that are important.
Well, and talking about that again, you know, when you get out the thruway, if that was a way that there was ever a discussion about to come down Millard Fillmore, that would make the most sense. Most people that come off of the thruway, they're looking for a hotel room, and we might have the possibility of having a second hotel room. It's not very natural for somebody to get off the thruway and go down a mile and a half of dark roadway. I mean, pretty much you follow the traffic, you follow the lights, and that's how you go. So maybe that's a discussion we can have, you know, down the road sometime soon with the county and possibly the state of New York and the college, and keep all 3 of us involved with it, 4 of us actually, with the county, and see if something can be done to that.
And then of course on Route 5, where Phoenix and the Battery Point Villas, you know, that would be another entranceway, because people come up through Silver Creek, so they like to drive by the lake. I mean, I have guests who come up and they'll say, well, we want to go by the lake, so they want to drive up Route 5 as opposed to coming straight in. So, you know, there are those things that happen. We have a lot going on in the city. Our economic development is just very, very busy. Our DPW department is going in every direction possible, because we've got all these things with the water filtration plant, all the things with the wastewater treatment plant, and then of course our DPW director is the one who has to make sure that everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen. So there's a lot happening. What other kinds of issues do you guys have that you think are important, that you'd like to bring up or that you should bring up?
I'd like to just throw out, while we're talking DPW, I believe that there's probably every layer of the DPW that we have that's understaffed. I believe we need a few more in streets. I believe that they probably could use some in parks. Water filtration, I've heard that they are, but then I've also been told that they're fully staffed, so I don't really know where to go with that one. And the wastewater treatment plant, I hear that we are in need of some operators, and that there's a lot of hours that are worked on overtime over there from the operator trainees that we could use more. So I mean, I'd like to relieve some of them from having to work so many hours and get it staffed the way we need to have staff there, so that we can cut down on some overtime. And you know, I work for the county, and we used to get a lot of overtime in the winters, and they made some changes, and we don't get as much, but we still get overtime. But it's really good to have a life still outside of just being at work every day. And I think that's a quality of our employees' life that we need to get back to them, that they're not just a slave to being at that one facility 60, 70 hours a week.
I agree. I think that sometimes that's, that's a lot of hours, and I used to work those kind of hours. I don't anymore, but I did. But, we talk about the staffing, and the Human Resources Department has a staff meeting every single month. And every month, our HR director, David Campola, we go over the staffing for each and every department. And we look at overtime issues, and we look at where we are. With our water and wastewater treatment plant, those operators have to go through a whole series of testing and training and all the things that go on. So that's an issue, and so they have to be tested. So we might have an operator who at the wastewater treatment plant who's been a trainee for a while, so they kind of stay in that slot until they reach a certain level. As far as our streets department and our parks department, certainly we always staff up as temporaries in the summertime for those positions. However, if we look at what an entry-level street or parks labor position, including benefits, for 2019, and they get a reduced starting salary, we're looking at close to $70,000 for that person. And that $70,000 is a lot. We have to think of our taxes, we have to think of where we're going to go with that. And if we were to hire our temporary employees, we could probably hire 6 seasonal employees for 16 weeks to make that up. So I understand where you're coming from, but that's a consideration when we get through the budget process that we really need to sit down and look at and say, where do we really want to spend the money?
Well, we'll probably also have to hear from the public too, to find out, how they want things to go. Do you want good streets? Do you want good water lines? Do you want good sewer lines? Do you want, when there's a break, because I forgot to mention too, I also believe we're understaffed in water maintenance too. I think there's a position, at least one, that needs to be filled there, but I hear they could use 2.
Right.
So there's a lot of those positions that I think we can fill. I think that if we have the right people, we won't need to contract out as much, so we could take from that budget line. We wouldn't have as much overtime, so we could take from that budget line. We're supposed to be looking at trying to get some solar wind to cut the electric or cut the cost for electric, and we're supposed to be getting the LED lighting coming in that's supposed to save money. So some of that money savings, I think if we could properly staff ourselves, then we can properly maintain the infrastructure better, and
I think
that's the way to go.
And that's certainly something that you all as councilmen need to talk about during budget time, because that's a critical issue.
I plan on it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching City Speaks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, we'll have them back. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.